Hello, I'm Bill, and this video is a response to Norman Maslow's 25 beautiful album covers. So I think he's started a thread suggesting you do a short video. So this is the first album cover I'm going to show, and it is for Tencc's The Original Soundtrack. And a fantastic drawing, an illustration for this wonderful album. And then on the inside, some more projector hand drawing. The illustration was done by a chap called Humphrey Ocean. So Humphrey was at one point working for Ian Dury, and he was the bass player in Kilburn and the High Roads. But he left the band in '73 and he wanted to pursue life as a painter. Now, one of the facts about this album is, and I don't know if you can see where my finger's pointing to, but this is the reflection of the faces of the band Tencc in some of the projector equipment. You probably need to go to the actual album itself if you have it to check this out. But seemingly this was a bit of a homage to the Dylan album John Wesley Harding, where in the bark of the tree you can see the faces of the Beatles. So the album's got some great tracks. Une Nuit à Paris, Part 1. And we also have the classic I'm Not in Love. And on the second side, you open with the second sitting for the Last Supper. And the other single on this is Life is a Minestrone. I have this book which tells us more about the Tencc album. Humphrey says, I have always preferred to draw things from life, but I had to do this from a photograph. The photography of the Steenbeck and related film equipment was set up in a Soho basement in London. I did rearrange things a bit from the original. I used to get up early in the morning and work right through, and it took me about 3 weeks to draw. I would put the radio on, and it was an ideal existence. So the album was put out on the Mercury record label in 1975, and the art direction was by Hypnosis. So now I want to speak about a Bowie album. I think the critics give this album less credit than it deserves. It has wonderful tracks such as See Emily Play and Friday on My Mind, as well as the hit single Sorrow. Now, the story of the cover is that the photographer Justin de Villeneuve was driving in LA with Twiggy around the time that the Aladdin Sane album was released. And of course, Twiggy gets a name check on the single Drive In Saturday. So Justin de Villeneuve, who had just done a couple of photo shoots for the cover of the Vogue magazine, thought it would be a good idea to do a cover featuring both Twiggy and David Bowie. So Justin de Villeneuve flew to Paris for the photo shoot with Bowie and Twiggy, the famous 60s model. And he wanted a sort of dual portrait with head and shoulders approach. but Twiggy had just come back from the Bahamas and was sporting a tan, and David Bowie, I think they gave him a fake tan, but it didn't look right. So the makeup artist, Pierre Laroche, thought it would be a good idea to do a mask type photograph and just using pure makeup. So it almost looks as though Twiggy's tanned face has been transposed onto Bowie's face. Now, at the time, the album was just a series of covers and didn't have the name Pinups, but Justin asked David, how many copies of your album do you expect to sell? And David Bowie said, well, hopefully around 1 million. And at that time, the UK edition of Vogue would sell around 80,000 copies. So Justin decided to let Bowie have the photograph to be the cover of the Pinups album. And I don't think the Vogue editors spoke to him for quite a long time. Some interesting photographs on the rear of the sleeve, and you can see the track listing. So that's Bowie's Pinups. Next up, and in a similar vein to the Tencc album, we have Alice Cooper's Greatest Hits. The cover art was designed by Ernie Cephalo and features a sepia-toned Drew Struzan illustration. And it has Alice and the other band members in front of a sort of 1930s style garage. And it features the Hollywood stars of the 30s era, such as Humphrey Bogart, Clark Gable, Edward G. Robertson, Jean Harlow, Peter Lorre, and Groucho Marx. So there's Alice and the band in front of the garage. And there is an inner sleeve, which again has the members of the band as if they're at a speakeasy. And what I really love about this album is, although it's a greatest hits, the flow of the music is great. So we've got I'm 18, we've got Under My Wheels, you've got the perennial School's Out, and the election campaign, Elected, as well as $1 Billion Babies. So yeah, the illustrations are just great. Alice Cooper's Greatest Hits. And then one of the most iconic album covers ever. We have The Small Faces and Ogden's Not Gone Flake. And of course, it's in the shape of a tobacco tin, and Ogden's Flake was actual tobacco, but we were in the era of the 60s and wacky backing. So it was not just tobacco, but some other substances inside the roll your own cigarette. So you've got, it opens up to look like the inside of the tobacco tin, and then you've got the wonderful sort of psychedelia illustration, which tells us of the adventures of Happiness Stan. So inside you've got the various layers keeping the tobacco dry, and on that you've got photographs of the band members of Steve Marriott, Ronnie Lane, Kenny Jones, and Ian McLagan. So together they were the Small Faces, the ultimate mod band, and way ahead of their time. So I hope you've enjoyed my selection of great album covers. Speak to you again soon. Bye.